All right, we're recording, or at least attempting to record. And like I said, thank you for coming. Our new resident, Ted Cumings, has been here how long, Ted?
5 weeks, I think.
5 weeks. And is in 102, my old office. And let's begin with your birth.
I'm Ted Cumings. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, January of 1939. To a mother who was an angel and a father who was a perfectionist and boss. I was only mistreated by my older brother and sister. Not a problem. In 1937, my mother-to-be was diagnosed with a heart condition that put her in bedridden. And she was told, among other things by doctors, no pregnancies, it'll kill you for sure. And so, a year and a half later, my father couldn't wait anymore. And I was conceived, and God began looking after me. I didn't know it at the time. I know it now. My mother died when she was 83. I'm supposed to have died in my 50s because all males in the Cumings clan die in the 50s. Well, I made it to 86 with a little help from, a lot of help in fact. So when I had a sister who was 10 years old when I was born, and a brother who was 12. And so they were gone most of my life. By the time I grew up, they were gone. They'd eaten up all the college money. I started school in Detroit, Michigan, Puritan Avenue. At 4.5 was Detroit, which is come in at the half years. And so if you skipped a class or something like that, then you'd lost your grade, double, whatever the case may be. When I was 7 years old, and in the 3rd grade, my father came home and announced that he had quit his job. This is 1946. He quit his job, didn't know what he was going to do, didn't know where he was going to do it, didn't know when it was going to happen. And he had been in the automobile business all his life. And the next week, in the Detroit newspaper, he found a telephone company in Hope, Michigan, for sale. Mom and I and he went up to Hope, Michigan, which are 125 miles from Detroit. Hope, Michigan, had a population of 49 people. 10 miles from the nearest hard service road. It had a post office, a general store, a telephone company, a town hall, and 3 churches. Methodist, Conservative Baptist, and Pilgrim Holiness. Which was nearly Holy Roller. My father, being a businessman, said, well, I'm a businessman here in Hope, we need to join a church. So they chose the Conservative Baptist Church, Hope, Michigan. The church was hellfire and brimstone. Scared the bejeepers out of me. two-room schoolhouse. Kindergarten through fourth grade in one room, fifth through eighth grade in the other room. I've been in the third grade in Detroit. They put me in the fourth grade in Hope for 2 weeks. And the fourth grade teacher kicked me up to the fifth grade. One of the problems was that none of my teachers had ever had a college education. My mother had. So my mother would tutor me every night. The whole telephone company was cracked telephones, all right? Party lines, switchboard in our home. 24/7. When I came home from school, I would relieve Mom off the switchboard so she could get dinner, because Dad said dinner would be at 6 o'clock. And I would start my homework. In the evening, my mother would tutor me. My class consisted of myself and 4 girls, 4 girls. And we had a good time. The heat in the school was a cold furnace. And because I lived 200 yards from the school, my dad volunteered me to go at 6 o'clock in the morning and fire the furnace and get things squared away in the school. Church. I was spending 12 hours a week in church. 4 hours on Sunday, an hour on Monday, 2 hours on Wednesday, 2 hours on Friday, and 2 hours on Saturday. I think that's about 12. Choir practice, this, that, and the other thing. Prayer meeting, children's prayer meetings, adult prayer meetings. Look forward every summer to summer Bible school. And the minister was bound and determined that he was going to convince me if I didn't do exactly what he said, I'm going to hell. And after that beat on me for a couple, 3 years, and it was here. That was it. When I was 10 years old, by the way, my father, with the telephone company, had a telephone pole digger. That part of Michigan is clay. I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, digging 5-foot deep telephone pole holes in clay. My fellow students called me auger. Dad wouldn't buy an auger. My uncle who owned the farm that my mother was growing up in Bad Axe, Michigan, had a heart attack. And I, at 13 years old, went to farm to farm. 3 mules, 2 workhorses, and finally, an Oliver 60 tractor. I fell in love with farming. I was a junior, I was in the 8th grade in Hope School, and came home one noon to have lunch, and announced to Mom and Dad that I wanted to take the 9th through the 12th grade in Beaverton High School, because Beaverton High School was an agricultural school. And my mother violated another house rule by speaking out. And she said, Teddy, you are going to Midland Senior High School, you're going to take college preparatory courses, and you're going to college. My dad picked himself up off the floor. And I went to Midland Senior High School for the 9th through the 12th grades. Midland Senior High School was in Midland County, Midland, Michigan, home of Dow Chemical Corporation. Just purchased Delaware. And They took good care of the county, corporation did, took good care of the county, the schools, except for degree holder teachers. But, they were good for the county. When I finished the 8th grade, I had to ride the school bus to Midland, Michigan for school every day. I wanted to play basketball, but I couldn't because I was in the school bus. Second reason was I was 5'5", but an hour and a half each way each day on the school bus, and my dad was the driver. That is cruel and unusual punishment. Dow Chemical Corporation allowed me and other students to come and work at Dow Chemical in the summer of their junior to senior year. Come work full-time at Dow Chemical, doing whatever you were looking for and working for. I was a secretary, typist. Then in your senior year, you went to school half a day, worked at Dow Chemical half a day. A great experience. Great experience for a kid. Came time to go to college, and I was 17 years old. And when I was 10 years old, Minister Lindsay brought a Billy Graham wannabe in to save our souls. He was known as the singing cop. That's the name we went by. My oldest son, over 40 years in law enforcement, he doesn't think that's funny. The singing cop scared the hell out of me. He had 14 more ways I was going to hell. And when he asked for people to come forward and accept Jesus Christ as their Savior, I was up front like a flash. Accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior. I was going to be a missionary in Africa. I'll tell you later how that turned out. So when I got to college, Hope Township was dry. No alcohol for sale, any place. Got to college and that's interesting. All my fellow college students were going out and getting blitzed and so forth and so on. I didn't. On my 21st birthday in my senior year of college, my roommates took me out, got me drunk on Cuba Libras because I wasn't cooperating with them at all socially. And I was funny that night. They were laughing. Of course, they were laughing at me, not with me. That's the first time I had alcohol. I drank alcohol socially, acceptably, not a problem, for the next 48 years. When I got to college, I was tired of being told I was going to hell. I was tired of 12 hours a week listening to that. But I made an agreement with one of my college roommates to go with me to the Baptist Church in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, home of Central Michigan College. Checked in the newspaper, so forth and so on. That first Sunday, Diddy bopped over to the Baptist Church, and it was padlocked, closed and tight. Sign. I didn't darken the doors of the church until I was 70 years old. Gave up on
70.
No reason, no need. Successful in my career. No. So, graduated from college, commissioned second lieutenant in the United States Army Infantry. Because Central Michigan College was a land grant college, and land grant colleges have, male students have to go to ROTC for 2 years. And then the third year, I was working 3 jobs. And I was typing for the history department, the geography department, and the French department. Though I wasn't taking French. And so when my junior year came up, they offered me senior ROTC and said they'd give me $23 a month. You bet you, little beaver. So 2 years of ROTC, graduated with a bachelor's degree with 3 majors: geography, history, and political science. I was obviously going to be a teacher. Commissioned second lieutenant, United States Army. October 9th, reported in Fort Benning, Georgia, home of the infantry. Basic officer course in infantry, how to be an infantry. And 1960 was an election year. A gentleman by the name of John F. Kennedy was pushing special forces, Green Berets, to handle the Soviets. Special forces came with Benning, Georgia, recruiting. Got a bunch of second lieutenants. These guys was up in the field. And the first thing out of their mouth was, Lieutenant Cumings, we need to talk to you after this is over. I had scored high on the Army Foreign Language Aptitude test. And they don't know if this was real linguists, or people with capability to be linguists. And so they recruited me. Why they recruit me? They said $110 a month for jumping out of airplanes. My salary was $222 a month. 50% raise, you betcha. Finished the infantry officer basic course. Special forces grabbed a hold of me. Said, we need to send you to school. We need Russian speakers. You have to do a hardship tour in Monterey, California, on Monterey Bay, at the Army Language School for 1 year to become fluent in Russian. Well, I had taken 3 years of Latin at my mother's assistance in high school, so I learned grammar. She had taught Latin in her high school while she was a senior in high school. And so I had taken Latin and Spanish and a touch of French. First day in the course in Monterey, they informed us that we had 4 more days in which we could speak English in class. They were all native Russians, except one couple who were Ukrainians. They spoke better Russian than the Russians admitted. They spoke better Russian than the Russians did. Госпожа Alexandrovskaya. That was an old her. She was 15 years old. 1 year of that, off to Europe. I knew what I was going to be doing in Europe. I knew I was going to have to speak German to do it. Because I wasn't going to be dealing with Russians, I was going to be dealing with Germans. So I get to Germany and they tell me, okay, you have to go 5 months to learn German. There's a hardship tour in Oberammergau in Bavaria, down in the Alps. I wasn't good enough to get this stuff done, to get these kinds of assignments. God was, and that's a fact. I spent 5 months there learning German, and when they had the little ceremony, there were 25 soldiers there. They had the little ceremony to give this little certificate. When they called my name, they introduced me as the only student they'd ever had who spoke German with a Russian accent. So we finished that up, and then I went to work. And, Special Forces have me in the intelligence business, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. And, we were trying to make arrangements to fulfill JFK's dream of being able to influence the slave states of the Soviet Union, Soviet bloc, as East Germany, Poland, and I was supposed to be a part of that. One of the problems that the Army had with me was when I was a second lieutenant, I looked 15 years old. So they kept having me to school. We finally had to put me to work, and they did. And I, with a lot of help from on high, I was doing a pretty good job of what was happening. And one of the gentlemen I was working with in Frankfurt, Germany, was an American civilian contractor to the Army. We were married to a German wife from Frankfurt, and we were in Frankfurt. And the German wife didn't much care of me raising 2 little girls. So they had hired an au pair from Holland. And they invited me to the first New Year's Eve party they had since I was in Germany. And so I went to the New Year's Eve party, and this Dutch lady was attending bar, and I took one look and I said, boy, I need a drink. Long story short, that was in January of 1963. February 1964, we were married.
Oh.
In the 15th century stone church in Holland, by ministers whose name was Israel, not Jewish, who interrogated me severely to make sure that I was worthy of taking a Dutch lady away from them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when I was 12 years old in Hope Baptist Church, I had memorized the book of St. John and recited it to the congregation.
Oh.
That's when I was going to be a missionary in Africa. And so I had that kind of knowledge. So I answered all his questions, and he was cool. When we went in for the ceremony to the church, after the government ceremony in the town hall, he conducted the ceremony in English. It was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading Dutch for then, but it was cool in English.
Yeah.
We lived in Kassel, Germany, on the civilian market. I was stationed in a little tiny army post, World War II German post, and they didn't have any housing, so I rented a house, upstairs of a house from a German couple named Henze. Herr Henze had been in World War II, and Herr Henze, when Stalingrad fell to the Germans, Herr Henze walked home to Kassel, Germany, 2,300 miles in the winter.
My goodness.
I can't imagine it. They were very nice to us. We had our first son born in a German hospital in Kassel. Then we had our second son, 13 months, 12 months later. And then it came time to come home, me to come home. She was Dutch. She was coming, no problem. But she'd never driven a car. She had 2 babies, 4-month-old and a 16-month-old. I was here in the States from the time we landed in New Jersey. I was here in the States for 4 months off to Vietnam. I left there with 2 infants, not a citizen. She could drive a car, I made sure she had a professional instructor for that. And I went off to war. She raised our children. And she did a magnificent job. I'm forever thankful. I was assigned a Green Beret job in Vietnam as a camp commander, 18 Alpha Team 18 commander. That's 12 United States Army non-commissioned and commissioned officers. Captain, myself, a lieutenant, and 10 non-commissioned officers to fight the war in our section of Vietnam up against the Cambodia border. And our primary job was to monitor the Ho Chi Minh Trail and keep everybody posted what's going on. I've been there 2 months. I've been in Cambodia twice already. And I came home from the third trip in. And the first sergeant met me at the fence and informed me that President Lyndon Johnson had just announced clearly there are no United States Army boots in Cambodia. So what did they do? They changed my name and removed all paperwork for me that had anything to do with citizen of the United States of America. They sent me back. My wife, a non-citizen, raising 2 infants, had to write letters to John Coleman in Vietnam with no explanation. Went in on one trip, took one of my sergeants with me. And we went in with a montagnard. The montagnard of the 15th century mountain people of Vietnam who were hated by the Vietnamese, mistreated by the Vietnamese. And we used them as, they were our mercenaries. We taught them how to, we gave them weapons and so forth. And it took a minute, because they could hear. They could hear things, a pin drop from a mile away. It got settled in that day, a little saucer out there in the woods, about 75 yards from the trail. And the yard went, one yard. Something's coming. Okay, get settled. Ready? And something breaks loose back over here in the brush. And the sound is coming, and it's coming our way. I didn't know it at the time, but the sound was a Siberian tiger with a head that big around. And I'm not exaggerating.
No.
And he was coming right at us, the 3 of us. I wasn't on a suicide mission, so we couldn't shoot. We couldn't fire. We'd have 150 North Vietnamese at us. The tiger got from here to the wall. And sharp left. And away he went, he or she. I believe the tiger that weighed between 500 and 600 pounds. It was huge. It was fast. And it was taking, that was one leap for it, from the wood to the wall. Turned left, toward the trail, and we heard 5 or 6 shots in about 3 minutes. So I assumed the tiger bought the farm. God made that tiger do that. There was no reason for that tiger to turn, none whatsoever. We didn't dare shoot. We were about to be tiger dessert. And God had his way. I had three other instances where there is no doubt in my mind that God saved my life, because He had plans for me elsewhere, and I am forever grateful. I got home safely from that tour, and tried to participate in raising our children, and the Army would say, "Oh, we got to move you again." I moved my family 14 times. Went to Army Intelligence School, Reconnaissance Surveillance. Was an instructor there for 3 years. Then Command and General Staff College, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. 1 year as a student. And back to Europe. Selected for promotion to Lieutenant Colonel and for battalion command. 750 soldiers. One mission in mind, and that is to keep the Soviets behind the line. And we did it. When I got to Europe, I had to go to the Commander-in-Chief of U.S. Army Europe's command course that he held in Heidelberg, Germany, where the headquarters was, for all incoming commanders at battalion and brigade level. So we knew what the rules were, what the environment was, what we were expected to accomplish, etc. 10 days. He paid special attention to me. Why? Because now I look like I was 22. And I was going into battalion commander. And when we graduated from the course, he walked up to me and said, you have a really tough job. Available. A 4-star general to one of 400 or so battalion commanders he was commanding, offered me to get your back. Why? Because it was a NATO mission. So I had to coordinate with NATO in addition to his army forces. When I was in command for 14 or 15 months, I got a call that he wanted to see me. Sick Usler, 4-star, General George. And so, of course, in Heidelberg. And when I got there, I had to wait because he was busy something, and his horse holder guard for his door said he's on the telephone. That's all I know. So he came out and apologized to me for being late. Takes me back into his office, closes the door, and says, "Colonel, I just got off the telephone with the Commander-in-Chief of the Soviet Forces Germany. He's invited me to come and visit him in East Berlin next weekend. What do you think?" I hit that fast. I knew the guy, the Soviets' background. He was a hard hitter. They used him as a sledgehammer, going into units that they were not satisfied with, and so forth. Now they put him in charge of all of their forces in East Germany. And so I said, "General, what I think is, I know, first thing is that he's going to try to intimidate you, and it ain't gonna work. But he's gonna try. And you're gonna counter by giving him a real education on your capabilities and his lack. Essentially, Soviet forces have won every war they won, as did the Russians before them, with their artillery. They always had at least 2 times as much artillery as any opposing forces. And that's what they did in World War II. And now you're facing me. And what you need to understand is that I have the capability of counter battery fire, that is, artillery fire to kill your artillery fire, to kill your artillery batteries. I have capability that the world has never seen. And I am going to, if you come, I'm going to defeat your artillery, I'm going to drive your butt all out across Poland, back into the Soviet Union, and I know where your tactical nuclear capabilities are stored, artillery shells, nuclear, and I will strike them. And the wind here is west to east. And your bosses in Moscow are going to be gravely concerned when they start seeing this cloud of nuclear waste coming across their farmland. And tell him the location of 3 just so he knows you're not fooling him. But you can't tell your staff, because some of your staff's going to turn you in for violating security rules. But you need to do that to prove to him that you know what's going on. And oh, by the way, don't tell SAC Europe, Supreme Allied Commander Europe, who's the siege of 4-star American there. I went on a while. And he talked, and he said, okay, I'm going to East Berlin tomorrow evening. So I kept track of him. And he didn't come back for 5 days. He came back on the 5th day. And I got a call the next morning from his horse holder saying the general wanted to see me. I walked in and he said, he blinked. I said, yes, sir. What you may not know is he left this morning for Moscow on an unplanned, uncoordinated trip. 7 years later, I was in the Pentagon, and I get a call from a lady in Alexandria, Virginia, who claims to be the secretary of retired General George Blanchard, the general. And he would like to have lunch with me. Yes, ma'am. So I go to Alexandria. He was the president of the Reserve Officers Association as a retired 4-star. And he takes me to lunch to tell me that he needed me to understand that the result of that incident was a complete turnaround in the relationship between a group of Soviet forces, Germany, and U.S. forces and NATO forces. And I didn't know that. I was doing well. I was promoted to 06, full colonel below the zone. And the Army told me that they wanted me to agree to command the soldiers who would be building a new Army brigade of some 8,000 soldiers. But I needed to design it first because there had never been such a brigade. We did that. we did that. And that brigade went to Afghanistan. Our responsibility was North Africa, Middle East, South Asia. From Pakistan to Afghanistan to Somalia to Jordan to the Sahara Desert. I had to go and figure out what's there. God is with me all the way. It's just amazing. What am I doing here? We got that organized, we got it operational. We moved the field headquarters to Afghanistan. And tried to prevent the last days of it in Afghanistan. I came back to the States to reacquaint myself with my wife again. And I was given 4 days' notice that I was going to be interviewed by the Secretary of Defense to be his advisor on tactical forces. Reagan administration knew Secretary of Defense was Caspar Weinberger, undoubtedly one of the smartest men God put on this earth since Jesus Christ. That's where. He interviewed me. No, he didn't. He interviewed my record. Next thing I knew, I get a call, report to Secretary of Defense next Tuesday. I went in to report for duty. Colin Powell, two-star general, was his horse holder, his door guard. General Powell told me, go on in, he's ready. Knock on his door, walk into an office that's half the size of this room. He's over by the window with a stand-up desk overlooking the Potomac River. And he's 5'7". I had done as much research as I could, but that one hadn't penetrated. And what I discovered was, not only was he 5'7", he had a Napoleonic complex. He did not like people hovering over him. Well, I'm 6'2". So I walked up and he was at his stand-up desk, and he talked to me for 3 or 4 minutes, and then he said, "Go have a seat." There's a couch over there. Well, I didn't have a choice. I had to walk over there. All the way there, my mother was screaming at me, "Don't you sit down." I didn't. He came over, looked at me, said, "It's okay. It's okay, have a seat." "What can you do for us?" Bingo. "Mr. Secretary, we are spending tens of billions of dollars on a space system to support the National Command Authority with intelligence information by our potential rivals. And we're not allowing the tactical forces to have that data because you're classifying it too highly. So the tactical forces are the ones that are dying, and they're not getting the information that could help save them. So we have to stop it, and you can stop it. Why haven't I been told this? So he interrogated me on, well, okay, what are your thoughts on how you do that? He said, do it. I told him, the first thing we have to do is we have to go to all the unified specified commanders around the world to get their support for this action. To have them settle in Washington. We need that data. So I started around the world with unified command, to visit the unified commanders and some of the specified. And I came back and I had told him, sir, I can't do this. I can't do this. We can do it, but I can't do it. We're good. We're good. We're okay. So I got back and told him what needed to happen to be able to allow our tactical forces to use that satellite data to perform their mission safely. The Navy and the Air Force and the Marines notified OSD before the Gulf War that they projected that because Iraq had the second best Soviet anti-aircraft defense system, they could lose as many as 70 tactical aircraft. By the time we kicked off the war, which was about 13 months later, every jet jockey that took a flight into that theater pre-flew the mission on a laptop against every threat, and knew what the threat was, what the fan was for the radar. In other words, where it's looking and where it can't see it, and display that on a laptop computer in the mission planning sessions, and then fly the mission with that knowledge. We lost 2 airplanes and 1 pilot. Just amazing. I didn't do it. There are only 2 heroes in this story: God and Jesus Christ. They used me. I am so grateful. I came back to Secretary Weinberger and went home on a Friday evening in August 1985, home being Reston, Virginia, so I was on the Washington Beltway, the Pentagon, and I had a neurological event, 6:30 on Friday evening in August on the Beltway, and ended up in Walter Reed Army Hospital, who, along with God, performed miracles, saved my life. And while I was in Walter Reed, I made a decision under stress that should not have been made. I submitted my resignation to leave the Army. I had to spend time with my children. I've been ignoring my children. Yeah, I've been ignoring my children. They're all gone. My daughter was just going into college. My oldest son, the cop, was facing the North Koreans on the 38th parallel as an MP. When I retired, I had to go back and tell Secretary Weinberger what I'd done. Colin Powell called me the next day and said, the secretary would like to talk for you. I went in and the secretary asked me if I would please have a session with his headhunter. His headhunter, a female, 50-ish, who was his they found me a job, they found me an organization in which I could join and be hired by to perform the job I just resigned from the secretary. I did that for 11 years, for 4 secretaries. In the later 1980s, I began to increase my consumption of alcohol. In 1995, 1996, when I retired from the head hunter and had purchased a home in Bay at Rock Hall, Maryland. The gene caught up with me, and I let the gene catch up with me. The gene of alcoholism. I became a slave to alcohol within 3 months. 3-month period. And that lasted for about 7 years. The last 4 years I was consuming 1.75 liters of vodka a day. I was killing myself. I didn't care. I had no responsibilities. My wife couldn't handle it, walked out of the marriage. I was alone in our retirement home on the Bay. And God stepped in again.
Keep going.
Our 2 sons were born in April. Our 2 sons live in Manassas, Virginia, about a mile apart. April of 2012, I decided I need to go to Manassas to celebrate 2 sons' birthdays. So I did. Saturday in the rain, drunk as a skunk. I made it to Manassas. I made it to the home of my younger son. It was Saturday, they were still working. I had a combination to the garage door opener so I could go in. Parked the car in the street, got out of the car, fell down, and could not get up. I was drunk. Couldn't get up. It was raining. I hogged my butt dragged over the sidewalk, up the driveway to the garage door, so I could get up and get in the garage door. The garage door didn't have any handles. I couldn't get up. I lay there in the rain, thinking of 2 things that I remember clearly. My God, my children are going to find me here. And I wonder what Casper Weinberger would think of me now. Neighbor came out from across the street. I explained to him that I had a disease that caused me to lose my balance. I didn't know I was telling the truth. He helped me up. Got the coat in. He took me in the house and babysat me for about 2 hours until my younger son came home. That evening, my younger son called his older brother, obviously to come check Dad out. I was still drinking. About 9:30, something like that, I heard somebody in the house say, "Hey, I know I told you a couple of years ago I got a problem. I'm your dad, I can fix it. I can't fix it, I need help." Younger son, who had 24 years of sobriety, thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous at that time, on the phone to Perry Point VA Medical Center. We told him, bring him up here as soon as you can. We have to put him in detox, but make sure he's drunk when he gets here, or they may not keep him. Tanya, my daughter, Deer John and Bear John took me to Perry Point VA Medical Center. That morning I panicked because I had cleaned the house of booze. I found a fifth of fifth of Jim Beam. Bourbon. Must have bought it to poison a neighbor or something. I drank that sucker in an hour and 3/4 it took to get to Perry Point. So I followed instructions. My two boys more or less carried me into the facility, sat me down, went up to the desk and got me all registered, so forth and so on, and then said, "Dad, you gotta sign this thing." I got up and went, "Stone for." The cop leans over me and says, nice job, Dad." That's the last drink I've had.
Yay.
It's the last time I wanted a drink. Alcoholics Anonymous says we admit we were powerless over alcohol. Their lives have become unmanageable. Yea, verily. We believe that a power greater than ourselves might be able to bring us back into sanity. Within 3 weeks, that power greater than myself was the God of my childhood. And has been ever since. What I didn't know then, and I understand now, is all the time that God was with me that I've explained to you earlier, that I didn't recognize at the time. Just amazing. Used me. I thank him every day for having used me for his purposes and for helping me help my fellow man in his name. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I am a son of God, a child of God, father of 3 marvelous children, with the thankful ex-wife of their mother, ex-husband of their husband of their mother. I'm so thankful for her help in raising those children and being a marvelous wife. And it's all God's fault.
Love you, Dad.
Does anyone have any questions? Did you enjoy Ted's story?
Very much
Yeah? Great ending, huh? Yes. That God was with Ted all his life. He didn't know it at the time, but he truly was watching over you, guiding you, leading you, guiding generals and sec defs, right? Keeping people safe. But most importantly, being with you.
And I am in the right place now. In my life. Absolutely. I need to be here. I'm pleased to be here. I'm thankful I am here. And to the staff, it's been marvelous.
And that's all their fault.
Well, thank you. And I hope that you all get to spend some wonderful time with Ted as well as each other and